What is up, guys? I hope you're well, and welcome to another episode of Entitled Parents. Yes, one of my favourite subreddits. I mean, it's one of the ones that's really kicked off this channel so far, and I gotta thank you guys for it, as always. And if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe button, and maybe even the little notification bell. Thank you very much, guys. Let's get into this. My mum was, and still is, a crazy homophobic protester. Like the one that's at a pride festival with an offensive sign. She even told gay couples that they couldn't be like that because they might scar me. Anyway, this summer, after I graduated high school and was moving on to college, I had a boyfriend and we're still together. I always told my mum he was just a close friend. Then my mum told me we were going to protest at a pride festival. I had had enough, so I began to think of a master plan. First I put on my rainbow coloured clothes, then I put on some black pants and a hoodie, and made a protester sign with 2 layers so I could peel off the first. When we arrived at the festival, I took out my sign and stood with the other protesters. Once my mum came over, I ran over to the parade, took off my hoodie and pants, revealing the rainbow outfit. Man, I will never forget the look on her face. Then I peeled off the first layer of the sign which I made, and it said, "Hi Mum." That was the best day of my life. My mum just walked away, got into her car and drove away. Even though I had to wait for half an hour for my friend to pick me up, I still remember that day as the greatest day of my life. What can you say about homophobic parents? You just gotta feel sorry for the kids, but obviously this kid's got the right mindset. They don't give a shit what their parents think and just doing their thing, so fair play to you. I've just started running an online D&D game. Last couple of sessions I noticed my connection was really bad. The usual stuff didn't help. After a while I found out that a couple of months ago my neighbour had borrowed the Wi-Fi password off my girlfriend because they were having connection problems. It was supposed to be for a day or two while their new ISP connected them. Saturday before last I changed the Wi-Fi password. Connection is better. On Sunday the neighbour's wife turns up. "Is something wrong with the internet? I can't log on." I changed the password. "Oh, can I have the new one?" "No, you were only supposed to borrow it for a few days while you got your own connection. And I couldn't get on the connection when I needed it." There's a short discussion that boils down to, "Oh, we didn't think you'd mind." "I didn't if it was only for a few days. It's been about 3 months." "But you have it anyway." "Yes, because I pay for it, and when you use it, you're taking away something I pay for, and making it worse for me and my household." That evening, my girlfriend mentioned she'd gotten a text from the neighbours and were having problems with their internet again, and she'd lent them the new password. Had another chat with the neighbours which boils down to something like this. "But we need the internet. Sammy needs it for school and Kev loves his games." "Then get your own connection." "I did, but they can't get out till Wednesday." "So just 2 more days then. I'm changing the password again Wednesday." "If you must." Me being me, I forget Wednesday. I don't remember until game night comes around and I notice the connection is a bit dodgy when I'm setting up. I change the password again and everything clears up. Next day I get a 10-minute lecture from the husband that I should stop harassing him by cutting off his internet in the middle of playing his games, that I'm ruining his daughter's life by stopping her from studying, that I need to give him a new password so his daughter could load new videos for her YouTube. I walk away, close my door and enjoy a beer. Monday comes around. This is glued. Yes, glued. Not taped to my door. Not sure which of the neighbours wrote it, but the transcription reads, "I hope you're happy, fucktard. You ruined my girl's hopes. You have no right to cut off my internet. You stopped my daughter from streaming and ruined her chance of being a YouTuber. Hope you're fucking happy, ass-tard." The insults in that note are just amazing anyway. But yeah, so the daughter's the daughter's YouTube career is ruined. Yeah, I can relate to that. Kid gets caught stealing mint condition Boba Fett figure and took it out the box. The owner, his uncle, demands $2,000 for the loss of value of the figure, or he'll call the cops. The EP thinks it's too much. I completely understand why he's mad. His property was stolen, but we're family, and I think it's a little overboard to threaten to call the police on your nephew. I can't afford the $2,000, that's why I offered a partial payment to help him get a new one. My son is not smart. Yes, he probably opened it to try and hide it better, and believe me, he will be punished. But I don't see why we need to get the police or government involved. It's a family issue more than a legal one. This nephew went and stole this collector's edition Boba Fett took it out of the box. And you know where these collector's items are more valuable in the box. They pretty much just ruined the value of this thing completely. And they don't understand why the owner of this figure is pissed off. Jesus Christ. I used to work as a swimming teacher. In one class, there was a deaf student. Let's call her Jane. And I was the only one who knew basic sign language. So I worked as a second teacher in the class specifically with Jane. The age limit was 3 and above, but there were some exceptions. Entitled Mum, let's call her EM for originality points, was an exception. And her daughter KC was enrolled when she was just 2.5. There was a snowstorm one week and only 2 students showed up. Myself and the other teacher took a student each and worked on their badges. For context, each class had a level and 3 badges before the student could move to the next class. Each badge had a checklist with 10 things. It was expected that a student would roughly get 1 badge a term because we couldn't target lessons to 3 different checklists at once. Casey got a badge on that day because I could deliberately work through the checklist with her on her own. Over the next few weeks, her progress went back to what was expected in a full class. She was still making progress, just slower. Jane was also on a different badge, so I'd have to assign different exercises for Jane before I could help Casey. Ian called me over before the start of a class after about a month of this to ask why Casey had no more badges. I explained that they were expected to get 1 badge a term and that Casey had just been lucky with a snow day. There were always private classes if Ian wanted faster progress, but those were more expensive and on a different day. Ian said that she'd make a formal complaint because I was giving special tuition to another girl in the class over Casey, and she pointed to Jane. I tried to explain that Jane was deaf and I needed to sign to her, which took longer, especially when I was winging it with my rudimentary skills. EM then asked if Jane was paying more. I said no. EM stuck her finger in my face and claimed I was discriminating Casey just because she can hear. Jesus Christ. She also said something about getting me punished for discrimination. I said she could move Casey and she argued that she shouldn't have to. She wanted Jane to move and tried to drag the receptionist into the conversation by saying she heard me say to Jane that she needed extra help, so she shouldn't be in a dumber class. Jane's mother was also deaf, but with the pointing it was fairly obvious who EM was talking about. I had to rush off to teach class, and I know I shouldn't give in to entitled parents, but I already had a formal warning. I dyed my hair and a parent complained I'd scared her child. So I didn't want to risk it again and give Casey as much attention as I could. Still, Casey refused to be in the water without floaties, so she couldn't get her badge that week. The next week, I had another formal complaint from the head office because a parent had complained I was transphobic. I didn't have any trans students in my class, and I never talked about it with the children, obviously. So I wasn't sure what I'd done. Apparently I misgendered a student. I tended to call the whole group guys just for ease, and EM claimed that misgendering Casey like that had upset her, and she didn't want to come back. EM wanted me fired, especially as I called Jane a good girl whenever she swam rather than a guy. Spoiler alert, I didn't talk to Jane because, you know, she was deaf. I had a second formal warning, and after that Casey moved to a different swim school because I taught all the classes for that age group. I had a second formal warning, and after that Casey moved to a different swim school because I taught all the classes in that age group. My mum is a substitute school teacher in the district, and apparently Casey turned up in one of her classes a few years later. The family hadn't changed. Of course they're not going to change. They're assholes. Mum dumped her kids at my house and demanded I look after them. So I had a son that was 8 at the time, and he had a friend that he would always hang out with, therefore I know his mum. I never had any problems with her until one week. For the weekend, me and my wife had planned to celebrate our anniversary. We were going to a fancy restaurant with great food, but on Tuesday I get a text from entitled Mum, and this is how the text went. Can you look after my kids at the weekend? Sorry, I can't. I'm celebrating my anniversary this weekend. What? Who's going to look after my kids? I'm sorry, you'll just have to get a babysitter. No, my kids are more important than your anniversary. You need to look after them. What? I left it at that and expected nothing to happen, but boy was I wrong. Sure enough, when we were getting ready to leave, a car pulls up blocking our drive. I knew there would be confirmation, so I went out first and I put my things in the car and my wife got in. Because her car was blocking the drive, I asked her to move, but she refused. I threatened to call the police. Because she was stopping us from getting out and our house is on a T-junction, she was parked on the junction, which is against the law. She again refused. I get out my phone, called 999. She saw me call the police and quickly got her kids out of the car and then drove away. After the police showed up, I explained that she dumped their kids there and then left. They took the kids back to the station and tried calling EM. She didn't answer and the kids had to spend time at the station. A month later, I get an email from Child Services after the incident. They looked into EM and found out she hit her kids and gave them unthinkable punishments, and found EM unsuitable to look after kids and took her children away. They also thanked me for calling the police, so after all, EM got what she deserved. P.S. My son still hangs out with EM's son and they laugh about this to this day. What is with the mum just like pulling up outside someone's house, jumping the kids off and then, see ya, got things to do. But it's quite sad in the end. Obviously she's hitting her kids, but it sounds like she got what she deserved in the end, and hopefully the kids are a bit happier now, so we can only hope. Child stole my necklace. Thank goodness my mum is a boss. Disclaimer, my mum is the only mum in this story, but the other adult involved acted like the parent of the demonic child, so hopefully you'll see why I decided to post this here. I felt it fitted, and I hope you feel the same once reading. This is my first post here. People involved. Me, 7 or 8 years old. Meek, quiet, pushover, and a very anxious child. Got decent grades in school, but didn't participate much due to nerves. Classmate, who I call Annabelle. Very social, loud, bit of a teacher's pet. My mum, strong woman, takes no shit from anyone. I like the sound of this already. Teacher, fond of Annabelle. She is the EP of the story, though not actually Annabelle's mum. So I was a kid when this happened, but I remember this well. My mum is fond of retelling this story to people, which has kept it fresh in my mind. It concerns an item of jewellery. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I didn't own much jewellery yet, just plastic rings or necklaces. The sort that wouldn't be a big deal if the kid lost or broke them. Then my mum's friend gave me one of my first pieces of real jewellery. A chain with 2 frog pendants on it, one frog sitting on the other frog leaping. I was so excited to wear it to school, but first I had to assure my mum that I was responsible and that I would take good care of it. The next day at school, the necklace attracted a bit of attention. Most girls in my class weren't wearing nice necklaces yet, and a group of them asked to see mine. The chain was short, so I took it off and handed it to them so they could have a closer look. I carefully kept an eye on the frog charms while they were examining it, but the necklace was returned to me intact and I put it back on. Meanwhile, Annabelle, who hadn't been a part of the group, came over once they left. She'd been watching me show the necklace earlier, so I found it a bit odd that she waited until they were gone that she asked to see it too. Still, I didn't expect anything, so I took off the necklace so she could see it, and since only one person was handling it, I wasn't worried that one of the charms would fall off. I turned my back on her for a moment, which was a mistake. Here you go. Annabelle handed me the necklace. I started to put it on. The leaping frog was missing. Where's the other charm? Annabelle stared at me. What other charm? There was 2 charms on it. There was only one, she insisted. I stared at her down, looking for some sign of deception. When I handed it to you a moment ago, there were 2. She didn't even flinch and continued to meet my gaze. I never saw 2. Maybe you dropped it earlier. I looked at the floor around us just in case it had fallen. Nothing. Imploring her one last time, hoping her conscience might shift, I pleaded. Are you sure that you didn't see it? Annabelle shook her head and looked away. Class was about to start, so she busied herself by organising her pencil case and notebook on her desk. At that moment, I felt completely powerless. I couldn't accuse her to her face of stealing. She would just stick to her lie if pressured. She had friends in the class and a twin brother who would take her side, and I feared that the teacher would do the same. I had no evidence, just my word, and what I was sure what had happened in that split second I turned my back. All I could do was return to my desk and tried to hold in my furious tears. The next morning before I left for school, she called the school and asked to speak to the teacher who might have taught me and Annabelle. I was listening and my mum explained the story to the teacher. Can you make Annabelle give the frog charm back? Your daughter must have been mistaken. What? You haven't even spoke to the other child about this yet. I don't have to. I know Annabelle and I know she wouldn't do something like this. She's a good student. My child is a good student too, but what do grades have to do with this? Annabelle stole from my daughter. Your daughter probably lost the charm and didn't want to admit it to you. My daughter doesn't lie to me. Aren't you going to do something about this? No, the teacher wasn't going to do anything about it. I completely lost faith in humanity at this point. My classmates were thieves who couldn't be trusted, and it didn't seem like adults were going to help me either. Then, as my mum got off the phone with the teacher, she started to hatch a new plan. She asked me when recess, a 30-minute period when students go outside to play, took place, where Annabelle sat in the classroom and what her pencil case looked like. Since I told my mum that I suspected that Annabelle put the charm in her pencil case after taking it, I asked if she was planning to come to school and look in when Annabelle was outside. That is exactly what she was planning. I was terrified. I told her it wasn't worth it if she got caught snooping in Annabelle's things. My mum said, "I have to do this. I'm going to show you that you can't let people walk all over you. Stand up for yourself. Don't let people get away with stealing from you." The next day I felt sick with tension as recess drew near, knowing that my mum would be stopping by the classroom while I was at recess, under the ruse of returning my forgotten lunch. I kept an eye on the teacher and Annabelle while we were outside, petrified that they would return to the classroom for some reason, but knowing that there was nothing I could do to stop them. Eventually, my mum appeared on the playground with a satisfied smile on her face. She patted her purse, telling me that she found the frog pendant inside the pencil case. All of the tension drained out of my body. My mum had set the world right again. I returned to class at recess and glanced at Annabelle, who had returned to her desk. She was staring into her pencil case and frowning. Then Annabelle looked at me, suspicion on her face. But since I'd been on the playground the whole time, she couldn't accuse me of anything, especially not stealing back my own necklace piece. I had an innocent expression pasted on my face, but as I look at her and she looked at me, it seemed like we both knew what really happened. My God, what a badass mother! I like that sort of plan, sneaking in and getting your own stuff back, even though you're getting your own stuff back and you're having to sneak around. I bet looking at that Annabelle was just, I bet that was bliss. I'm getting a little bit of that goodness right now. As always guys, I just want to thank you for joining us on this channel. I know we're still fairly small, but we're getting some subscribers and I really do appreciate every single one of you. You mean the world to me. Thank you very much guys. Take care. Goodbye.